everybody. Welcome to another sensational session of Strike a Chord Live podcast with my dear brother, Collin Harbour. He's right there in Dallas, Fort Worth, Texas. I'm Marcus Ellis. I'm here in Pensacola, Florida. Collin, why don't you tell him who we are?
We are two lifelong friends with a love of baseball, music, motivation, and inspiration mixed with a little bit of nostalgia, culture, transformation, and fun. And we want you to take the journey with us.
This is Strike a Chord Live podcast.
Hello.
I don't know if that was like so slow, guys, but that's the way it was for me. I don't know what's going on with that, but
I was a little bit worried.
I love it.
Awesome.
Yeah, so StreamYard to think sometimes things go a little wonky, but that's a great way to show perseverance and that we don't care whatever happens. We're here. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another sensational session of Strike a Chord Live podcast. If it didn't come out on the recording, but we are so happy you're here, especially you kids that are on the hashtag replay. We have a very special guest with us today, Collin. My dear sister from another mister, Linell Burns, is here. Good morning, Linell. Thank you for being here, sister.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, this is going to be a great session. And we have a lot of people already jumping on live. So, Collin, what's going on in DFW today? And we'll get into the meat of things.
Just the heat, baby. Just the heat.
Oh,
100, 105, 104, all that kind of stuff. We're winding down the summer, which also means it's my beautiful daughter's birthday week. And,
nice.
it's when you have children, and I know we all have children on this group, you just, it's the old proverbial, man, time flies by, right? And now we have the phones where it pops up pictures, right? Memories from 16 years ago, 15 years ago, 14 years ago. And it's just, a little tear to my eyes, stroll down memory lane over the last couple of weeks of when Audrey was just, 1, 2, 3, 4. And here she is about to start her senior year. So that's enough about me, but that's it. Dallas, Texas, USA.
That's great. That's great. Well, real quick, you mentioned that last night, my wife and I, we took Morgan and May to the Sanger Theater to see, it was a play, but it was like life-size puppets of a Disney kid show named Bluey. And we were watching Bluey, and I was watching my daughters, and I'll get emotional now, just jumping up and down. And I was holding on to my 9-year-old, and I was like, man, this is so fleeting. It's just so fleeting that I'm just taking it all in. So you have a daughter's birthday. I did the same thing. Linell has children. So let's stop talking about us, Collin, and let's let our very special guest talk. Good morning, Linell. I love you. Great to see you. What is happening up there in Connecticut today?
Oh, same thing, just loving the fact that my children, they're adults. My babies are 25, 18, and 22 now. But like Collin said, it just goes by so fast. All I can say is take as many pictures as you can, guys. For all of you who have young kids, it's definitely something. It does go very fast, and you just wonder, where did the time go?
Amen.
And, the picture thing is we've all got, thousands and thousands of pictures of now on our phone, in the cloud, all these different things. So it is fun to look at old pictures, frankly.
Absolutely.
Well, all right. Well, now let's learn more about you. That's why we have you here. You're very special to me. You inspire me. Like I said, you're a bright light in the dark world. So let's just get going. How did you get to this point? And what is it that you're doing to change the world?
That's such a great question, Marcus. Thank you so much. Well, I am an empowerment coach. And like I said, I'm a single mom. I have 3 children. When I started on this journey, my children were 10, 7, and 2. I was in a relationship with their dad, absolutely loved him. He loved me. It was good for 14 years. And then everything went south. And so I would love to say it was all his fault, that man, and just bash him. But of course, hindsight is retrospect, right? And so I had a part in it too. But long story short, he ended up leaving me with 3 children. I ended up homeless with those 3 children. And we literally had to fight our way back to humanity. And the reason I say that is because Marcus and I are friends from Clubhouse, an app that we met on during the COVID pandemic. And we follow a gentleman by the name of Glenn Lundy. And Glenn really showed us how to get back to humanity. And he has a similar story. He had gone through homelessness and he had gone through the rock bottom, and he was considering suicide, actually. And he decided to pull himself out of that situation. And now he's graduated to America's best speaker, the greatest speaker. And I feel like it's almost a similar journey, because I went from not knowing what was going to happen to us to all of a sudden the Lord, and God is a big part of my life. I mean, I'll shout it to the mountaintops. I love the Lord, and that's not going to change. And I don't, I'm not saying that I don't respect anyone and their beliefs, because I do, but I expect the same thing for myself as well. If I respect your belief, I'm expecting you to respect mine. And so we got to a point where we ended up in a women's and children's shelter. We were never in the streets. Let me just clarify that. We were never in the streets. We had people who, on the day, and I'm going to share a story with you because I want you to see the brevity of what we went through. So my ex was the person who was leasing our apartment. His name was on our lease. We had just moved to Georgia. And when I got there, I had come from corporate America. I came from a background of being a Salesforce trainer. I used to travel in order to train different call centers on new company products. And I had a great job, according to what the world standard is. And when we got to Georgia, I didn't know that you had to know someone. It wasn't really what you knew, it is who you knew when you were down in Georgia. He knew people because his family was there, right? And so he ended up using his family as references and things like that. He got a job right away in the security field. And I, for 3 years, could not find a job. And I had someone who I interviewed with at a store. It had gotten so bad, I was willing to work at Publix. That's how bad it got. I went from Salesforce trainer to wanting to work at Publix. And I ended up actually getting a job at a place called HMS Host. HMS Host owns McDonald's, Burger King, and Starbucks down there. Wow. And we were in a mall. They hired me to be a shift supervisor. So that's how I ended up getting a job after 3 years, because someone had the mercy to say, hey, let me go ahead and give her a job, but she's not a crew member. She needs to be in a leadership position. So during this time, he left. I've got 3 kids. I have his family there, but they're his family. They're not really my family, right? And so they're leaning on his side more than mine. And we end up getting evicted from our house. In Georgia, you do not get any time after you go to court other than 7 days. On day 7, they come and they put your stuff out physically. So I want you to imagine 7 days later, but this is how God worked in our lives. That 7 days turned into 6 months in that apartment. Management would not come to put us out. And I remember the day, but I always knew the day would come. I was still struggling financially, but I knew the day would come when I had to leave the apartment. And I'll never forget, my kids and I were sleeping. There was a loud banging at the door at about 7 o'clock in the morning. And I'm looking, we had a dog. We had a beautiful lab mix. He was a golden lab mix. And he's barking and he's barking. I open the door, and there's a sheriff standing out there with 7 people. And he says to me, Miss, if you don't shut that dog up, I'm going to shoot your dog. And he said this in front of my children. Now, mind you, my children are small. He ended up saying to me, I need you to get dressed because you need to leave, right? The 7 people came into the apartment after I got dressed and I got the kids dressed. They took my curtains, my blankets, my sheets off of my bed, and that's how they packed me up. They threw everything in the linen, packed it all up, put it outside. My children and I have no place to go. Their father is not picking up the phone. Their aunts and uncles are not picking up the phone. And I'm sitting out on the street with my kids outside of our apartment complex. Let me tell you about God. So here's what he does. A good Samaritan comes by and she says, you guys need some water? Because it's Georgia now. It's the middle of summer. It's hot as anything. She goes and she gives us bottles of water. And she ends up saying to me, if no one comes to get you, you guys can come and stay with me. This was a woman that had 3 children of her own, about the same age as my children. She lived in a 2-bedroom apartment in the complex. We did not know each other, but it was the Good Samaritan that took us in. We ended up living there for about 6 weeks. Then she and I, being women, we were kind of territorial, if that makes sense. And so I had to make sure that not only did I respect her environment, but I had to respect myself as well, and I left. So we end up moving in with a church member, one of our church members, and she had 11 children. She lived in a 4-bedroom house, 3 bathrooms, 11 children. We thought because she was of the church, it was going to be something that was an environment of love and grace. What we didn't know was that she had 5 adult children and 4 of them were gang members. And so my children used to, I want to say it was a house of horrors for my children for a long time, because now down in Georgia, I start looking for ways to support myself, supplement my income. We ended up going on food stamps, but in Georgia, you can't just get food stamps. You have to go on a job search, and they don't give you the food stamps until 30 days later. So for 30 days, we're living in this apartment with this woman, with children, her kids. I remember one day I came home and her oldest daughter was using a taser in order to keep the kids in line, like scaring them, with a taser, that if they didn't behave themselves, that she was going to tase them. And so this woman was actually the catalyst for my children and I getting to our next spot. She had called a woman and children's shelter down there. And what should have been something that was to hurt me turned out to be one of the greatest blessings. When we got to this place, it was 8 bedrooms, 8 bathrooms. A house had been renovated to house just women and children. My children and I had our own room. We had our own private bathroom. We didn't have to worry about where food was coming from, because the restaurants in the area catered to this particular shelter. So we had breakfast. It was usually a cold breakfast in the morning. Lunch, we had to leave by 7 o'clock in the morning. The kids went to school, and I was, job searching. I'd go to the library and things like that, or I'd go out. The program I was in, they gave you bus cards so that you could go looking for jobs. So to wrap it all up, this place, at my lowest point, 8 bedrooms, 8 families, our own, our own place. Well, not our own place, but our own room. Everything is catered to us. Breakfast and dinner are taken care of. All I have to figure out is lunch on a daily basis. And I was taking things from breakfast with me throughout the day, like, apples and things, bananas and stuff. in order to sustain myself until nighttime. I remember that year was one of the most abundant years that my children had for Christmas. Now, I'm not someone that actually celebrates Christmas in the way people do, going all out and things like that. But I do make sure that my kids were included in that process. That year, there was a family that adopted us. And that year, Marcus, when I tell you, gifts were flowing it was such an abundant outpouring of love to me and my children that we could not contain everything in our rooms. We literally had to start giving it away to the other families that were there because of the fact that God had blessed us so abundantly. And now we're going to fast forward to, let's say, about 10 years later. And I decide that I found a job in the meantime. Like I said, it was I was a manager for the HMS host, but then they shut our location down, and they wanted me to go to the airport in order to continue working for them. And I couldn't do that with 3 children, no car, and it was already a 2-hour bus ride to get to work every day. So we end up back in Connecticut because my oldest son, at 16 years old, his father was deported to St. Lucia, and that's a whole nother story. But let's just say he went to St. Lucia, had a panic attack, and when he had the panic attack, they over-sedated him and killed him on his 40th birthday.
What?
Yeah. Yes. So now I've got to explain to my 16-year-old son, who absolutely loves his father because he always kept in touch with him, that your father is gone, right? So now we come back to Connecticut. I end up staying here. And during that time, not only do I land a job at a major hospital, but I go from being in our dispatching office to now training the call center again. And then I decided during the pandemic, I didn't want to be in the hospital, especially, just everything that was happening. I went per diem and decided to get certified as an empowerment coach because I knew that my story was going to help someone else. And I literally, the woman you're seeing right here has rebuilt herself from rock bottom, and God was throughout the entire process. And so I'm hoping that I wasn't babbling or oversharing just now, but I just wanted you to see who I am and where I came from. And I think a lot of times people only see where we are now, but they don't know what it took to get here. And that's what it took for me to get here where I am now.
Unbelievable.
That's crazy. That's a wild, interesting story. That's not the right word. I don't know. That's a wild story. And, some of the things that stood out to me that I forget, therefore I'm sure other people forget, is there are people on some days who all of a sudden don't have a home. There are people on some days who wonder, oh my gosh, how am I going to feed my kids tomorrow? How am I going to feed my kids dinner tonight? Right? And we forget that. Everybody forgets that, right? Unless you've gone through it. And part of your story now is changing who you are so that you can help others. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. And, there's a mindset that comes with it because, I could have chosen at any time to be a victim. And even as I was going through the things I was going through, I never really looked at it just like that. I just looked at it as what's the next thing that I need to do in order to get out of here, right? I always had that mindset. Even when I was in the shelter with the kids, I remember there was a day, I think it was because we had 3 months to live there. I started looking online for jobs, and that's when it really where the internet was really the barrier for a lot of people as to whether or not they could get a job, right? Because now you've got an algorithm that's deciding whether or not your resume goes through. And I remember at the shelter, this woman came and she was a resume writer. And I said to myself, if I can get this woman to help me with my resume, I'm going to get a job. This woman came on a Tuesday. Do you know Thursday I got a call from Comcast in order to come in and become an account executive with them? And that's how I got out of the shelter. And that's how we ended up being able to apply for the food stamps that I had been waiting for so long. Remember, because I couldn't get the food stamps unless I had the job search and all of that. But I couldn't do the job search because I had the kids. And now I had an opportunity not only to make sure that when we left the shelter, we would be able to eat. Because that was, and Collin, you just said something so powerful, especially as a mother. When you have children and you don't know how you're going to feed them that day, that can be one of the biggest stressors that you go through as a mother. Not even whether or not you eat, but are your kids going to eat? Are they going to go to bed hungry? And so I'm just grateful to God. He literally, it was not easy, guys. It was not easy.
Imagine.
But here's the thing I know that I'm speaking to you from the scar today, and I'm not speaking from the wound.
Yeah, what I get out of this is that you chose, instead of being a victim, like you said, to be victorious.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
But another thing that struck a chord with me is that you're going into a job day after day, and you're probably not telling everybody what's going on, but you've got a smile on your face and you're doing your job. But in the back of your mind are like, are my kids okay? Are they safe? Are we going to eat tonight? Many people would just lay down. Mm-hmm. But what I get out of this is that you chose to be victorious. You're like, first of all, I'm going to put all my faith in God to get me and my children through this. But then secondly, you're like, I'm going to do whatever it takes, barring something horrible, to get my kids out of this. And the thing, my favorite Bible verse is James 1:2-4. And that it just struck a chord with me that this is you, Linell, and it's considered a pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Let perseverance finish its work so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking in anything.
Yes. And
that's what I get from you, Linell. It's like, we've known each other. I've never heard that story before. We haven't taken the time to get into that. See, Terrence Elmore is here with the Brown Sugar Cafe. Love you, bro. Good to see you. Man, this is just so inspiring. I just can't imagine going through that. And then, other things, Collin, in my head are like, where was your ex-husband? Where was the money coming in for that? Why wasn't he doing what it took to keep these children? But obviously that didn't happen, and that's no dig on him, but that's just part of the story. But if those kids didn't have you, where would they be today? That's what I get out of it.
Yeah, and I'm glad you asked that, because the day that we were being put out, I actually did call my ex and he wouldn't answer the phone. And then I left a message and he ended up calling me back about an hour later. And I said to him, the sheriff came, everything is outside. All of the kids' stuff are outside. We're sitting outside. I need a storage unit. Can you help me? And at the time, because I had called to find out how much storage was going to be, it was $30. It was $1 for the first month, and it was $29 and some change for the second month. He would not give me $30. He would not give me $30 to get a storage unit. But he loved his kids, right? And it was actually the woman that I told you, she gave us the water. She loaded up her car and helped me bring stuff to storage. She paid for the unit. She put the stuff in storage for me. She had her friends come and move the heavy furniture and put it into storage for me. Their father decided that $30 was not good enough for him to give to me for my children. Now, mind you, when you asked where was he was actually with the woman that he had left me for. He was with her. And 2 weeks after this entire situation happened, he picked up my children because his sister ended up babysitting them while I was working at Comcast. 2 weeks later, he went to his sister's house, picked them up, and introduced them to his new woman.
Oh my
And
gosh.
told me that the reason that I needed to stay out of his life and the reason he came to get the kids was because she's going to be a part of their lives and I needed to get over it. And 3 weeks later, he did the same thing to her that he did to me. She woke up one morning and he was gone.
Wow. It's just, we don't even have enough time because we have 5 minutes left to get this all in, but I'm blown away, Collin. I mean, this is a story of perseverance, of faith, of being victorious. There's just so many takeaways we can get from having Linell on, right?
Yeah, no doubt. And I liked what she said a few minutes ago too, that she's speaking or that she's doing this from the scars, not from the wounds, right? So healed and ready to go. There's so much we could talk about related to that too. It's you could stay wounded or you can heal and then use that platform, use your scars to do other things.
Well, and that's your story, Linell. So I want to, in the few minutes that we have left, I want you to talk about what you're doing. I know you're coaching women, but you coach men as well. And also want people to know how they can find you.
Absolutely. So I'm an empowerment coach and really just settling on the mindset that you are not a victim, you're a victor, and putting that in place as a foundation in the beginning of my coaching. I'm not going to sit and listen to your sob story and let you revel in the mess. I'm here to pull you up out of it. And so one of the things that I decided to do was I got certified as an NLP practitioner, and I'm actually a master practitioner, which basically means that I study the behavior and I help you find the tools to not only change the behavior temporarily, but to change it permanently. And so that's what I do as a master practitioner, and just loving the fact that I can help another woman get to her own sense of power. So thanks for the question, Marcus.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I mean, and we don't need to name drop, but you've worked with some pretty high profile best-selling authors. These are men, men that are my age or Collin's age, things like that. So, I mean, your gift is not just serving women, but it's serving people. It's serving God's children, and it's all through an aspect of faith, perseverance, and service.
Absolutely. And I'm glad that you mentioned that. I'm actually going to be doing a webinar on the 31st at 7 p.m. It's you can go to my website, linellburns.com, and enroll in the webinar. And one of the things that I'm doing is I'm helping, it's focused on women, but as you said, I have worked with big name people, both men and women. And I think a lot of times people think that it's only one brand of people, I guess. That's the only way I can think about it, that need help with mindset, but it is men, it is women, and it is even children. And so this particular webinar is going to be centered around women, helping them get through the emotional baggage of divorce. But I'm going to be doing another webinar in the middle of August that's going to be focused on men and the emotional issues that they have, but they cannot really speak with their spouse or partner, speak about it with their spouse or partner. So this is going to create a safe space for men to interact in community with each other and also be able to get those things out that may be holding them back as well.
Amazing. Well, Collin, I know we got 1 minute left. Do you have anything to add before we and Linell, would you come back on? Because we don't have enough time for this.
Of course I'm coming back on, Marcus. Thank you for the invitation. Let's go ahead. Just drop me the link right now. Let's go.
Yeah, no, I don't have a whole lot to add. Thank you, Linell. It was nice meeting you. It was nice hearing the story. And I think, yeah, we have you on again and we talk then about, we talk about a number of things, but I'd love to talk about how does someone who is wounded, turn it into scars and then, get to the next phase of life with scars or on their scar platform as opposed to their wound platform.
Oh, and not to put you on the spot with your schedule, but if you're available Friday, let's do it this coming Friday at the same time. Just check your schedule. If not, we'll reschedule it. But yeah, I just want to anybody watching and listening on the hashtag replay, man, if you're going through anything that approaches this, or you're going through something worse than this, look at Linell and his example that perseverance with faith can get you to the other side of any issue or any problem, and you can really thrive and jive, as I like to say, by doing these things. So Linell, we thank you. We love you. Let's have you on again. Man, it's just been an honor to have you here, and I wish we had an hour, but we all got to go do our thing, right?
Well, thank you for inviting me. This has been so wonderful to me, Collin and Marcus. You know I love you. I love you, brother. I love you, and thank you for inviting me. I cannot wait to see you again. This is Linell Burns. Bye for now.
Peace and chicken grease. We're out.